and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike, who might just be a little suspicious of Justin getting married in about 6 months. How you doing, Mike?
I guess I'm suspicious.
Yeah, it's rough after watching the farewell. And Justin, who may or may not actually be getting married, or just doing it to see Mike. How are you doing, Justin?
Oh no, are you well? Have you gone to the doctor recently?
Or is it you, Mike?
Oh, no.
Or is it me? Who are we faking this wedding for?
Oh, somebody out there that's coming has a problem, and I'm not saying who.
Oh no, I'm so worried now.
It's more like 9 months, though. Just FYI.
9 months?
But
okay.
You said a little more than 6 months, and for some people, relatively speaking, 9 months is a little more than 6 months, so you're not
It's
wrong.
all relative when you're listening to this. Somebody could be listening to this, and you could already be married. Or fake married.
Yeah, or not.
All right. And if this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March. Then, for our feature review, we'll be reviewing The Farewell.
And don't forget that each month we do an episode on the Criterion Collection called Casually Criterion. Last month we did one on Jean-Luc Godard's The Weekend, or just Weekend. And we are going to do one this month for Valley of the Dolls. Each month we get to vote. We each pick a movie, and you guys vote on which one you like the best, and then we review it on the podcast. Casually Criterion is the name of the episode. So keep a lookout on your feed for those episodes.
Can't miss it.
Not at all. Just subscribe.
Yeah, and if you want to vote on which Criterion movie we're going to review next, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. The polls are usually on Twitter, but there's links to them, or we post about them on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to send us any questions or thoughts or topics to discuss about each movie we're reviewing every week, you can email those to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And of course, if you haven't yet and you like the show, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review or a 4-star review. No less than that, though.
Yeah. Otherwise, don't even bother.
Yeah. Only 4 or 5.
No.
But yeah, that helps people find the show. It gets us up there in the rankings, and that's pretty cool.
We appreciate it. And with that, gentlemen, are we ready to go ahead and get into News on the March?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's do it.
News on the March!
Okay, guys, so D23 just wrapped up this weekend, and there were some things that I wanted to talk about, and then a lot of stuff I don't really want to talk about. Yeah. Let me start off with this. Do you guys have anything from D23 that you know of that you thought was interesting that you wanted to talk about right off the bat?
I don't think anything that you don't have planned to talk about.
You don't want to talk about High School, the musical, the series?
Wait, what was the title again?
The Disney Plus streaming show they announced is called High School Musical, the series. It's High School Musical, the musical, the series. Yeah.
I fell asleep.
Yeah, you do that during long titles.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to talk about that. What else?
We have the return of Hilary Duff for a reboot of Lizzie McGuire. Does that do anything for you?
No.
I like it, an idea. If I had been a fan of Lizzie McGuire, I'd be ecstatic, I guess. But
what's the premise of it?
I don't know. Lizzie McGuire does more stuff, but she's old.
She's older now.
Yeah.
It's
what
not
what did she do in the first series? Was she a detective?
I don't know.
No,
it's not
she was like a high school girl, but she had a little animated version of herself that would like talk and stuff. It was just like kind of normal family comedy show, like along the lines of like Boy Meets World or something.
Well, she did mention that her little cartoon stuff was going to keep talking to her as if she were still a teenager, like her insecurities and stuff. But I also thought there was a detective element. But what do I know?
She probably needs to go to therapy if she has a cartoon person talking to her.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to see what happens.
That's what I was going to say it might be about, is like her dealing with this voice she's been hearing all through her
She actually learned she's crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, I never watched it too much. I watched the movie a couple of times. I kind of had a sort of a celebrity crush on Hilary Duff for a long time there.
Makes sense. You were of the right age.
I was.
It's not creepy.
No.
The Shrine You Have tour is creepy, though.
Well, yeah, but not because of age.
That's beside the
No.
point. Then there's also the Jeff Goldblum show, that the National Geographic show called The World According to Jeff Goldblum, where he just asks questions about stuff, I guess.
Does he quote Jurassic Park in it?
Oh, I bet he'll sneak something in there for you.
Then I'm in.
His memes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's the Lady of the Tramp live action movie.
I'm
Right.
out.
Yeah. Made straight for Disney Plus. Some Christmas comedy with Bill Hader and Anna Kendrick.
You know, actually, I watched the trailer to that,
Yeah.
and I might be in on that. I like Bill Hader a lot, and I thought he seemed funny. I also like Anna Kendrick.
Yeah, I like a good Christmas romantic comedy just as much as the next guy.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'd be
opposed to
interested
it.
in that. Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? Then there's a lot of Marvel stuff. That What If series, like the Peggy Carter is going to be in that. Let's see. There was some stuff about the Winter Soldier. No, excuse me. It's the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series, starring the Falcon and Winter Soldier, along with some other people. Then the WandaVision TV show. Do any of these TV shows do anything for you guys?
I'm in for WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Who I think I read that. What was the girl's name from Captain America: Civil War? Like the Peggy Carter's granddaughter. or
Oh
whatever?
crap! I just scrolled past it. Why'd you have to ask me that? It's not Sharon. It is Sharon. It's Sharon Carter. Peggy's the good one.
Yeah. So I was thinking that might be kind of cool for that continuation.
Yeah, it looks like they're including some other people too in it as well. Like some of these have like side characters from the movies, like Daniel Bruhl.
Yeah, he's gonna be
from
the villain.
Civil
I believe.
War. Yeah, she's returning, and then in the WandaVision one, you got Kat Dennings from the Thor movies, and then Randall Park from the Ant-Man movies as like the FBI agent or whatever he is.
Yeah, Randall Park was one of the best parts of Ant-Man.
Yeah. Anyway, what were you saying, Justin? I'm sorry, we cut you off.
Oh, you had asked if we were interested in either of the shows, and I'll say that I would maybe watch them, but it's like they could come out with all the news in the world about it, and like I don't necessarily like care to follow it too much. Like I'll watch them when they come out, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not really interested in like the trailers for these things, but
Yeah,
since it's one massive news dump, I thought we might as well talk about it.
sure.
And something else that's kind of cool that they're doing is they confirmed a weekly release schedule for all those TV shows, or at least The Mandalorian for sure. But I'm guessing that applies to most of their TV shows.
Yeah. I hope that this starts a new trend of going back to the weekly like release method versus like the weekend binge.
Absolutely.
I hope they are able to kind of bully Netflix, because right now Netflix has been bullying everybody for like the past almost decade, right? I'm ready for someone else to step in and make Netflix kind of do things a little differently.
Yeah, some competition.
Yeah, exactly. Then some stuff I just want to breeze past. Kit Harington apparently is going to be in the MCU as something in the Eternals. Some character. I don't know.
Black Knight or something like that. I
Moon
think.
Knight, something like that.
No, that's another. That's a TV show. That
So many nights. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then the main event, the stuff that I really actually care about, and that is Star Wars related stuff. 2 trailers dropped. Yeah, we have a trailer for The Mandalorian. Then we have a trailer for The Rise of Skywalker, which is kind of just another teaser. And then we got announcements for the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series. And then Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk went on stage and kind of teased a little bit about the Cassian Andor series. So, let me start with Chris. Does any of this excite you? What are you looking forward to out of any of this, if anything?
Well, I think Rise of Skywalker is the thing I'm looking forward to the most right now because it's the closest. And
Actually, that's not true. Mandalorian starts in November, buddy.
oh no, that's even better. So I'm looking forward to the Mandalorian more now.
Ha! Funny how that works.
Yeah. I'm actually the trailer. I was already sold on the Mandalorian. I was going to watch it, but it did make me really excited for it, and also it made me like we talked about Lion King a few weeks back, and even though Lion King ultimately I think was a failure, the special effects were amazing, and I pretty sure that I've read that Jon Favreau is using some of the same technology for The Mandalorian. So I'm excited to see that.
He's actually using miniatures. Like, he built miniature ships and films them with cameras in his garage and like puts them up against. And they're also using like the Unreal Engine that they use for video games to render backgrounds on the fly. So like they're using crazy technology that doesn't usually get used for TV shows. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Justin, what do you think about the Mandalorian trailer?
I think it looks good. I'm wondering if we're gonna have a more quiet, like mostly silent Clint Eastwood type bounty hunter. Yeah, because he doesn't talk in the trailer.
Well, he says one thing. I think he says I like
he?
those odds or something like that.
Oh,
but it's under the helmet, so I think he'll probably be pretty stoic.
Oh, okay. I guess I must have fallen asleep during that part of the trailer. I don't know. No,
or maybe that's in old footage. I don't know. Whatever. I'm sorry. Maybe I just fibbed.
Yeah, I don't know, but it looked cool. It looked fun. It looked like kind of action-y Star Wars, a little bit more action based.
Yeah, I like how Werner Herzog's character appears to be like I don't know, I guess like the commander of a unit of stormtroopers that's just kind of like a mercenary now, or something, or like a crime lord.
I like the opening images with like all the stormtrooper helmets and like impaled stormtrooper helmets and stuff.
Yeah,
makes me feel like it's not going to be super kid friendly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think Disney would let him do anything crazy, but also I think this is going to be more geared towards trying to get adults on board, right?
Yeah, probably a PG-13 is what I would think.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd let him go R.
No. But just, like I said, super kid-friendly. Emphasis on the super.
Yeah. Werner Herzog, though. How about that? That's pretty awesome. I love the idea of Werner Herzog being in a Star Wars film.
Oh, man. I thought it was cool when he showed up in Jack Reacher.
Yeah.
So I guess he just likes doing these, like, villain parts, you know?
I think, actually, they did an interview with him, and he's basically like, I get to pay for my next movie because of Star Wars, is essentially.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm happy he's there.
Yeah.
I hope he's, like, the main villain for season 1.
Yeah, it's a win-win for us, right? We get a new movie from Werner Herzog, and we get to see him in Star Wars, so win-win.
Yeah, it all works out. So do you guys have any opinions on the Cassian Andor or Obi-Wan Kenobi shows?
Don't know what the first one is. I mean, you said that Diego Luna and Alan Tudyk were in it, so I assume it's with the characters from Rogue One?
Yeah, his name is Cassian Andor in that movie.
Diego Luna's name is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going to be like his... life as a spy.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Diego Luna. I wasn't crazy about the movie, but it was fine. So I'm less excited about that than Obi-Wan news.
Sure. Let me ask you this though: if this comes out and it's like a live-action show about the early days of the rebellion and kind of gets to show you some cool live-action stuff that you've never seen before, do you think that this show would ever make you rethink your thoughts on Rogue One and make you like that movie more?
It's possible. It could provide some nice context and stuff to think about in hindsight.
Yeah. Because I found my biggest problem with Rogue One is I didn't have enough time to really latch on to any of the characters before things started going crazy, personally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the Obi-Wan TV show? What do you guys think about that?
That actually makes me pretty excited because... I mean, if they do it right, there's like this whole thing with Ewan McGregor being in the prequels. I'm not the biggest fan of the prequels. But I really like that idea between, Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Like, what is Obi-Wan Kenobi up to? Like, and what stuff does he get up to? I think it could be really good, but I'll have to see more to know for sure how I feel about it.
Sure. What do you think, Justin?
Well, I think it might have been you, Mike, who said this on one of our Star Wars episodes. Or episodes where we talked about Star Wars at some point in it, but I think you said something to the fact that Ewan McGregor deserves to be in a good Star Wars film or Star Wars TV show in this case. Yeah. And I very much agree with that. So that makes me excited for it, and I will definitely be watching that for sure. The one thing I would say is that there's sometimes like in movies or TV shows where like characters go on like a journey between seasons or between films, and like sometimes it's fun to imagine what's happened between like point A and point B. And like how Obi-Wan gets from Revenge of the Sith to where he is in A New Hope. I don't know, some filling that in with like concrete story doesn't totally appeal to me, but I'll still watch it.
It's a Solo problem, Solo kind of filled in gaps we didn't need filled in, right? And I think that's probably, I think originally this was going to be a movie, and because of Solo, they've kind of, and Disney Plus coming out, they've kind of recrafted it into a TV show.
Well, that's kind of interesting. I think that's what makes this more appealing to me. Because if this were a movie, I would want it less. I mean, I'd still want it because I still want a good Ewan McGregor thing. He's my favorite part of the prequels, right? But I feel like if Solo had been a Disney Plus TV show, I think a lot more people would have been on board from the beginning. Because it seems like those kinds of unnecessary gaps that you're talking about, Justin, how you maybe sometimes don't want those filled in. I think with a lot of people who are into Star Wars, that's half the fun, is because through expanded media of various sorts, all gaps are eventually filled in. And that's just kind of the fun of it, I think. So I think keeping that stuff in the expanded media and not making it a movie event, I think it fits that tone a lot better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair, I think. And of course, with movie or TV show, there's plenty of room for them to give us more Obi-Wan story without trying to give us a perfect thread from point A to point B. So
right,
that could happen as well. And I hold out hope.
Yeah. So anyways, the last thing I really wanted to talk about for D23 was the release of the new footage from The Rise of Skywalker. It starts out with a bunch of clips from all the Star Wars movies previously, and then moves into some new stuff. What did you guys think of this, Chris?
Do you think before, if you don't want to know anything about Star Wars, because I was a little hesitant to watch the trailer myself, but like if you don't want to hear anything about the Star Wars trailer, we're going to talk about it in depth, I assume. So maybe skip ahead. Look at the show notes. If you're listening to this right now and don't want to hear anymore.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Way to look out, Justin. Yeah, I like the way it advertises it as a saga. Like this is the conclusion of the saga and shows all that has come before. And then we get basically another teaser for Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
And I think that that's really exciting. There's one specific moment that, we're going to theorize about until the movie comes out, basically. But yeah, just as a whole, I think it works really well and gets me pumped up. What about you guys?
This was the thing I was most excited about. I mean, I'm excited for The Mandalorian, but the footage that I really wanted to see was from this movie. I really liked The Last Jedi. I think all of us on this podcast at least liked it somewhat.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think what I'm most interested in really is to find out what the general audience thinks about this stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one thing to get on Twitter and see an echo chamber of negative crap, but it's going to be really interesting whenever the box office eventually hits. I wonder if like anything in this trailer was enough to hook mainstream audiences back in. And I think the general vibe seems to be that people are pretty excited about it. I enjoy how it's a teaser. I don't really want to know a whole lot of confirmed story elements, I guess, before the movie comes out. I like the mystery. And I like how in this footage they give you just enough to speculate on. I think the main thing that I think everyone is really talking about, I guess, is the Rey shot at the end.
Right.
I kind of am of the opinion that that's not really going to be a huge deal in the movie. It's probably just a vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's several theories that I've seen, like a clone version of her, like just a bunch of different, or maybe Palpatine is actually controlling her to some extent. So it'll be interesting. What do you guys think about the lightsaber? I think that's lightsaber is pretty cool myself.
Oh yeah, the lightsaber is awesome.
Yeah, well, I think we've all been waiting for like the double lightsaber to come back since we saw Rey fight in The Force Awakens with like the staff.
Yeah, and I think that there's a twist on it that's different from Darth Maul that makes it new and interesting and not just the same thing.
Yeah,
That,
well,
like, folds open.
Yeah, that's been in, I think, the Clone Wars, a saber like that, but not a red one, and certainly not in any of the movies. So
right, yeah.
But yeah, it's super cool. Does Justin, does this get you excited for the movie, or any more or less than you already were? Do you have any questions? What does it do for you? Anything?
I don't know that it's more or less. Like, I'm really excited about the movie already, so it's hard to be more excited. It gives me like emotionally amped up, I guess. Like, or it feels like it like brings my emotions up to like the new teaser, as opposed to like the teaser we've already got just starts with this one. Like this particular video, if you haven't seen it, has all the clips from all the previous movies, including the prequels.
Yeah.
And watching all of those, I think it ramps me up more. So like,
yeah.
So it's maybe a bit more emotionally satisfying, but I don't think I could be any more excited about the movie, to be honest.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of that huge like array of like Star Destroyers?
Scary if you're not for the Empire or the First Order.
They look like Imperial era Star Destroyers versus First Order era Star Destroyers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it's... I'm trying to remember from some of the other like non-canon books, there was the Dreadnought fleet. Are you guys familiar with that? Do they talk about that in Clone Wars or anything?
I'm sure they do, but I'm not the best at remembering everything that took place in the Clone Wars.
From what I remember, it's like this sort of legendary, lost, unaccounted for fleet of Star Destroyers that were, Empire run. I guess they might be First Order. Right. They might be Empire run in this one. But yeah. I'm wondering if it'll be bringing that sort of lore into this world now.
Well, I'm wondering if it'll... Right, like it's like a contingency plan where he was like, yo, if Vader kills me, here's my plan to basically shatter the Empire. Because, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what Operation Cinder is, which basically after the Battle of Endor and the second Death Star blew up, Operation Cinder was basically where the Empire started turning on both like friendly Empire worlds and enemy worlds alike, and kind of like was like mass slaughter like on a multiple planet scale. And the result was that the Empire would be shattered, and that's exactly what happened basically, which is just like kind of like what we see in Mandalorian, I guess, which is like leaders of various groups kind of split off and kind of made their own little mini empires,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if this fleet was like something he had set aside, like a contingency plan for his contingency plan or something.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm
for
excited.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all we can speculate about that little minute and a half of footage. Are we done?
Yeah. I'm done with Star Wars and D23, unless there's anything else we haven't talked about yet.
That's all that interests me. I'm sure there's some other stuff that I'm forgetting, but whatever. It doesn't interest me that much. There's lots of Marvel stuff going on.
Yeah, we'll find out more later.
So moving on, Chris, anything interesting going on this week?
Well, you know what? Summer is over, and there are movies that are coming out into theaters that aren't based on toys or aren't sequels to other things. And some of those sequels I do enjoy, but it's good to get out of that and be able to see like original properties. Like Ready or Not came out this week, and then also I saw a movie called The Peanut Butter Falcon, which is a pretty great title, I think myself. This is the new Shia LaBeouf movie about a Down syndrome kid that escapes from his... like he doesn't have any family, so he's in like a nursing home with a bunch of old people, but he's only like 22, so he escapes and meets up with Shia LaBeouf. This is a pretty good movie. It's a pretty solid movie. One of the things I took away from it is I've forgotten how good of an actor Shia LaBeouf is. I have some animosity towards him, I think, and I'm not sure exactly where that's founded. I think maybe Indiana Jones or something along those lines. I didn't necessarily like him, but he's really good in this film, and I think he's a really great actor. And this is just like a really fun, heartwarming film. Not anything super special, but it's definitely worth your time, I think.
Heartwarming is what it looked like it was going to be based on the trailer, which made me want to see it. Like I didn't know what it was about. I just knew that I'd heard of the title before, and I watched the trailer. I think it was actually before I saw the farewell, and it looks emotionally moving and kind of happy and pleasant. So
yeah, in that independent kind of film way, like think maybe Little Miss Sunshine, but not as quirky,
Yeah.
The other thing, I guess, going into it, the one thing I was really worried about was it's so easy to laugh at the character Zach as opposed to with him, and I was worried that it might encroach on those lines, and it didn't. It was really thoughtful about all that stuff, and it was really good, and I think he gives a great performance as well. Zach Gottstigen is his name, and he does a really good job. So, yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, I read the story about the film was that guy Zach was a Down syndrome guy, and he wanted to be in a movie, like, and so him and I guess his best friend or his friend or someone he knew like wrote this movie. Whoever directed it, I think, wrote this movie with him, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna make this movie. And I don't know if they did like a Kickstarter campaign or something like that, but somehow it got traction and they got Shia LaBeouf and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, then that makes a lot of sense because it is definitely treated in the right way.
Yeah. It's always kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say uncomfortable, but like, that's always my fear is that it's not, like, that kind of subject matter is not going to be handled in a sensitive way.
Right.
And like, I don't want to go see something that's going to make me cringe. You know what I mean? Like, you guys remember that movie with Johnny Knoxville, The Ringer?
Yes.
Yeah. Parts of that movie
unfortunately
made me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think if you watch the trailer for Peanut Butter Falcon, it's pretty clear that this movie's not going to go in that direction at all.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I actually have not seen the trailer, and that's all I really want to know.
Well, there you go. Now you know.
Now I know. That's half the battle, they say.
Yeah, that's what G.I. Joe told me.
G.I. Joe.
Is that it? Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we move into the main review for The Farewell?
Nope.
No, I'm excited.
Ready.
Let's say farewell to News on the March.
What's wrong, Dad? Please tell me.
Your Nan is dying.
She doesn't know, so you can't say anything. The family thinks it's better not to tell her.
Why is that better?
Chinese people have saying, when people get cancer, they die. We have to go to China.
Wedding is an excuse so everyone can see her.
He's my only cousin. Do you think I should be there?
You can't hide your emotions. If you go, Nan will find out right away.
All right, as always with our feature reviews, if you have not seen The Farewell yet, that's okay. You can keep listening. We're going to be giving... Yeah, I mean, you should see the movie. Don't...
Spoiler alert.
It's not okay you haven't seen it. You should see it. But it's okay if you keep listening for now, because at first we'll be doing a general spoiler-free review of the film, and before we get into spoilers, we'll give you a warning and play a spoiler alert bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, not get anything spoiled, so you can go see The Farewell, which you should.
That's right. Okay, guys, The Farewell was directed by Lulu Wang, starring Awkwafina, Tsi Ma, and Diana Lin. The IMDb synopsis says, a Chinese family discovers their grandmother only has a short while left to live, and they decide to keep her in the dark, scheduling a wedding together before she dies.
That's like the synopsis I knew of the movie when I first heard of it, I think coming out of Sundance way back at the beginning of the year, and I was sold.
That's the synopsis I found out about when you first told me about this movie a few weeks back.
Mm-hmm. Except in our most anticipated, it was on my
but I had forgotten.
list. Yeah, that was
So
that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So, guys, you guys have both already talked about this. I'm behind you guys on finally seeing this movie. So what do you say I kick it off, since both of you guys' feelings are already out there about this movie, and I know what they are?
Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. This movie had a lot to live up to. I tried to see it before our best movies of the year so far episode. You guys had me hyped on it quite a bit. So when I finally saw it, I was ready for something good. You know? So I know this movie had a very high bar set for it, thanks to you guys. And I gotta say, this movie delivered.
Yes.
Yeah,
You had me going there for a second.
I know, close one. Sweating bullets.
Fake out.
I know. It's very sweet, and this movie feels very personal. The performances across the board are all great. Awkwafina is really good in this. I think she is able to get into some really emotional places, but not in like a hammy way, I guess.
Right.
It's very sentimental without being sappy. The whole movie is kind of like that, which is nice. It's able to feel sort of timeless in that way. The movie is full of just fully realized characters. Over the course of the movie, you get to know a lot of people in this family, and you learn to love them despite their flaws, which they all have, and you connect with them over time. It's also really interesting to see how Awkwafina's character, Billy, feels out of place in her own family because she's lived in America her whole life and she sees the world very differently than everyone around her. So you kind of have this fish out of water element to the movie, even though everyone loves each other and, there's not that much like tension necessarily, but they're able to get some really great scenes out of that. So anyway, I think the movie really delivers. It's not boring at all. I think maybe the pacing's a little slow, but I don't think that's going to bother you if you're sitting down to watch a foreign movie where you have to read Chinese subtitles, assuming that you have to read Chinese subtitles and you can't just speak Chinese.
Yeah, which I did. I had to read them.
But yeah, I think this movie's great. So I think everyone should see it. So Justin, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, like you said, I've talked about this a couple of times. I talked about it when I first saw it in a News on the March segment, and then we recently did our best of the year, best of 2019 so far, and I talked about it again. So I'll try to be
for that episode.
Yeah, so I'll try to be brief on it. And I think the most important thing that I think I said on those, and Mike, you've echoed here, is that the film is sentimental and heartfelt without being sappy or overly dramatic or forced.
Right.
It all feels very natural. And, the movie, while it did get me emotional and brought tears, it didn't seem like it was only setting out to do that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that it wasn't just like forcing me down that path like, some other films might. Like other films, even with like this, other films with this plot might have done that, right? So
yeah, I have something to jump off of on that as soon as Chris goes.
Well, yeah, that's it. I think everything else you said is true. I think the film is also quite funny.
Yeah.
And I laughed a good amount of times. I think
Awkwafina's facial expressions made me laugh. Like there's times where she wasn't even doing anything. She was just listening to her grandma talk, and their goofy like expressions she makes with her mouth are just charming.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm really high on this movie, obviously. So I'll leave it there. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what you guys just said. I think one of the things that you guys haven't said is this movie is shot extremely well. And I think that sets it apart from other dramedies of this ilk. Oftentimes you get dramedies and they don't look as good as this. This kind of raises the bar on what this film is, and it's just the filmography and the way things are framed. Not filmography, but the way the filming and the way things are framed are done really, really well. And I appreciate that in this movie. It gives it another level of quality, I think, to it. Like, and it also, in those like lower budget movies, or this is probably pretty low budget, but in those dramedies that are shot like TV shows or not shot very well, oftentimes the acting in that also becomes over the top, like just like the filming of it is as well. So I think that really sets it apart from its genre, right? And yeah, I really like that. I was curious to see what we would get from Awkwafina. I think that's a big turnaround. I'm not familiar with her as a rapper or what her personality is like,
right.
Except for Crazy Rich Asians, which she, is obviously way over the top in that, and kind of walked that fine line for me, like between being annoying and as a satisfying character.
Yeah.
And here she is completely different and so great. I
agree.
I think she nails it. Like, and without that solid performance, this movie kind of falls apart as well.
Right.
That main character has to be so great. And the other thing, some of the best scenes, like there's the dinner table scene, like you're talking about how she doesn't fit in China anymore, but she also doesn't fit in America. She's a person that doesn't feel like she belongs in either place. And I think that's a really interesting thing, like a B plot, to the grandma stuff. Just really great. I love this movie. It was my number one movie of the year so far. So yeah, I obviously love this film.
Yeah. And so I have something to kind of hop off of, and I think we've all kind of touched on it, how we said that the choices they make and the way they choose to film it kind of elevates the movie a little bit. There are some uses of like slow motion or some dramatic flares here and there, but they are never used in like the really dramatic scenes, at least not that I recall. And what I mean is it doesn't feel like there's any cheapening of the moment or emotional manipulation happening. Whenever the dramatic or traditionally emotional moments of the movie are happening, they are filmed very plainly.
Right.
Like there's some slow motion scenes of the family walking down the street, like where they all like get to look cool and walk in slow motion, where Awkwafina's in front of them all, you know?
Yeah.
And they're all kind of posing, and there's no reason for them to do that other than to make a cool shot. Like there's a little bit of that in there, but it's never in a moment to where it feels like the slow motion is there to tell you how to feel, right?
Right.
The really emotional stuff is filmed very matter-of-factly. And I really appreciated that, actually.
Agreed.
It reminded me something, I think it was on the Best of the Year So Far episode, when Chris, you were talking about this movie, you were saying that it reminded you a lot of Tokyo Story.
Mm-hmm.
And I get vibes of that a lot. You know, the idea of time passing and everything being something you can't appreciate until the end, you know? That idea of getting older is explored in both movies really well, I think. And it's just kind of this universal tragedy that you can't help but connect with. Right, yeah. You just can't help but connect with it because, you know, it goes beyond culture, right?
Yeah, it's a human thing, not a culture thing.
Right.
Yeah. And I think one thing the film does really well in that vein that Tokyo Story and Ozu in general does really well is highlighting the simple moments as much as the dramatic moments.
Yeah.
Because there are these moments in the film that I remember very vividly that aren't like things that are derived directly from this plot of like a grandmother having cancer and them not telling her, right? Like the thing that I remember the best and look back on is this long, like single shot of the grandma doing like some sort of like exercise outside, but she's like, like the whole time and making like noise but it's just this one shot of her doing it and Awkwafina kind of talking to her about it and like coming up and like going through it with her and like kind of learning it herself. And it's just this long shot, no other coverage on it from what I remember. And just like highlighting that simple moment is done really well.
Right. There's a lot of stuff like that. Like the reoccurring thing that the grandma calls Awkwafina's character, Billy, always calls her a stupid child. Right? Like that's like her thing. Like she always just calls her that as like, it's not even like a mean way, right? It's just like almost like a pet name. Or the moments where she's like, oh, you still have a round butt. I've always loved to touch your butt. You know, like there's just such like genuine grandmother moments that are so sweet. Yeah. And I don't know, they're hard to get right and they're hard to fake because they can seem so, I don't know, like I kind of used the word earlier, emotionally manipulative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and you said earlier that the film seems very personal, and I think a lot of that stuff just feels so real that like I have no doubt that whoever, well, I guess she wrote and directed it, Lulu Wang, but this feels like stuff out of her life. It feels so real.
It legitimately is.
There's a disclaimer at the end of the movie that's kind of makes it feel like it's very personal.
Yeah. There's a This American Life episode that she did that was based on this, and that's kind of how she got traction to do this movie. Cool. And also, I think a lot of her family, I don't think any of them are the main cast, but she did put a lot of her family in the film as well.
Oh, neat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that is all that I have for non-spoilers. I think it sounds like we all recommend it. I would say I'm currently at about a 4.5 out of 5 stars on it. I don't know where you guys stand.
Yeah, I'm 4.5 out of 5. If I see it again by the end of the year, I could see it going up to 5 easily.
Right, yeah. I think,
agreed, yeah.
I think it will reward you on repeat viewings and be a better movie to see multiple times than it is on initial viewing.
There's only one moment in the entire movie where I thought to myself, that's a little much, and I would tone that down. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in spoilers. It's just a little tease for everyone, so be sure you stick around.
Speaking of spoilers, you ready to go there?
Let's do that.
Spoiler Town.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
All right, guys. So now that we are in non-spoilers, I had a question for you. I enjoyed how when you first meet Awkwafina's character, Billy, at the beginning of the movie, she is at odds with her parents because they think she is maybe a little too Americanized in her way of thinking. And then later on, whenever her and her parents are in China, her parents end up kind of siding with her because their whole little immediate group is a little more Western thinking in their ideals than the rest of the family. Did you guys pick up on that at all? Or did you guys think that was interesting?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are some of the more interesting scenes, like that dinner scene where they're all talking together. And you have so they're not the only ones that moved away. I think the brother also moved away.
Yeah,
but
they live in
moved to
Japan.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I found that interesting as well, because I think Japan's probably more Western than China for sure, but it's not as Western as America,
Right.
But yeah, I found all that very interesting. And the way they talk about their children as investments, and all that was just really interesting and fascinating.
It's sad because it seems like Billy ties her connection with China and her home and her heritage with her grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like as she grows closer to losing her grandma, she has to prepare to lose it all, right? She has to determine if she wants to stay there or go back to New York, because everything else is always changing. Everything's always different. Nothing's the same as you remember it. When she goes back to China, all the places she remembered aren't the same anymore, which is something I think we've all kind of experienced at one point, right? When you go back to your childhood home or location where you grew up, it always feels smaller or different or changed or something's built over it,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like she feels like when her grandma goes, that's her last connection with her true home that she left when she was 4,
Yeah, her heritage.
So the one thing that I think I commend the film for is its balance of tone and comedy. And I just want to point out the whole wedding sequence, I think does this really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
I got very teary-eyed at one point during the wedding. I think it's one of the family members, again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but one of the family members is giving a speech during the wedding. And I got very, very, very choked up. But then later on, you have the scene where the groom is they're playing the drinking game.
Yeah.
And he just keeps having to take drinks, and that whole scene was very, very funny. And a lot of the karaoke stuff going on.
That's interesting. Was the place where you got teary-eyed, was it whenever the brother who went to Japan makes the speech to his mom and cries on stage?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Oh man, I agree with you. That speech is really good, but that's also the part I felt went on a little long and felt a little staged. I liked the crying, but then it cuts to a wide shot where he holds on him crying for a really long time, but he's just kind of dipping his body and standing in place,
Yeah.
And I felt like that was a bit much, because then he goes back to just being I'm so happy, and then that's the end of it. I don't know. I felt like maybe that was played for humor but undercut the emotion, but I don't know. I'm interested to see that it worked for you. What about you, Chris? What did you think of that?
Yeah, it worked for me. I think what worked for me specifically is that it's layered. He can't go to his mom and be and legitimately he has to find a way around saying goodbye, right? He can't just say goodbye. And I found that really interesting, that the way he gives that speech, and he's on the cusp of giving the whole game away,
Yeah.
And I found that line really interesting, is he going to give it away, or is she going to notice, this is a very close to giving the whole thing away. And so that part of it I did enjoy. So it wasn't quite over the top for me.
Well, I agree that the speech and everything in it's great. I think it's just that hold on that wide shot where it seems like he's I don't know, it's just a beat too long, where I remember thinking to myself this is a little sillier than everything else in the movie so far. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just remember we were talking about tone earlier and how it never ventures into that too much melodrama territory. I think that's the one time I think it dipped into possibly being a little over the top, but still in a very charming and emotionally honest way, I guess.
Yeah, and you might be right, because I was teary-eyed during the speech, but I remember, not hitting that full cry or anything, right? Like I don't remember tears falling out, and that might have been one of that moment that kept it a little bit, from landing completely and really getting me going.
It's very minor though, because like I said, I mean, it never doesn't not work. It's just it felt a little different than the rest of the tone of the movie. That's like the only time I remember thinking that in the whole movie was that one scene.
Yeah, I wonder if part of like the not full crying type stuff is all the characters also have to hold back. So I wonder if that's holding us back from like, just giving into that emotion.
Well, and the movie doesn't seem to be played for cries, right? Like it doesn't try to manipulate you into crying at any point.
Right.
I mean, I did cry at one point, and that's my closing question I want to ask you guys. So I'll let you guys get everything you have out first.
I'm curious if what you want to ask about is what I would talk about next. So I think I'm good.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and ask it. So, did you officially cry at any point in the movie? And if so, when? I will go ahead and kick it off and say that I did cry at one point during the movie, like a full-on cry. And it was the shot whenever Awkwafina is looking out at the taxi cab and we're pulling away from the grandma.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah,
and like as she turns the corner, she sees her sister helping her with her cough. You know what I mean? And it's just like, as far as Awkwafina knows, that's the last time she will ever see that woman.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that just was so powerful and emotional. It got me.
Yeah.
That was the best moment all year in movies so far, was like that moment in the theater when I cried at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other spot that really got me, but I think I'm going to hold off on that until like the very end because
yeah, well, I'm done skis, so it's up to you.
The only other thing I wanted to ask you guys about was what connection you drew from her doing like the exercise and making the like noise at the end of the film when she is back in New York, and then we cut to a shot of like a tree and the birds fly out. Was that tree back in China, or was that tree in New York? Because I thought it was back in China.
I think it's definitely back in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it has the same apartments that her grandmother was outside.
Okay, that's what I thought, and I want to make sure that my memory serves me correctly on that. But like, she makes the noise, and then we cut to like the birds. Is that just like sort of showing like this connection that she now has with China?
Yeah, her
I think so.
Is still there.
She learned something from her grandma. She's taking it with her. She's taking it to heart. They're connected in this way.
Yeah, because she felt fairly disconnected early on in the film.
Right.
I haven't been there in forever. So that's what I took away from that. And I liked that end moment.
And there's also the moment right after that where the movie ends and we actually see the real life grandma, and she's still alive like 6 years after her diagnosis. So there's also like the idea that like, wasn't the grandma doing that because it's like an old superstition that it keeps her healthy and keeps her going?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's also the idea that like giving us that information right after that scene of her doing that leads her to believe that maybe that in her own way, is doing some kind of good for her grandma and for her, And
that is the moment I wanted to get to because...
Oh, it all worked out then.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually the moment that really got me because I had geared up, like she's passed away, Awkwafina's never going to see her again. Mm-hmm. And then they show us that she's still alive. And I was just like, it was like tears of happiness. I was like, oh, thank goodness, like that's so amazing. I was so happy about it. Like, like I'm so sad. And then it's just like this opposite reaction where you're just, like
you pulled the rug out from under you.
Yeah. And I feel like in another movie, it would feel cheesy. Like, oh, she's still alive. You don't have to be sad about anything. But it just, I was so happy that she was still alive.
They also kind of explore a little bit earlier in the movie. They kind of set it up for that idea because they said that like, some Chinese people have the belief that it's the fear that kills you more than the actual cancer does.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also like this idea of like condoning what the family did because they indirectly might have kept her alive by sparing her the fear of dying.
I wonder if she knows yet.
Yeah, they still haven't told her. I would like a follow-up. I wonder if that poor Japanese bride has to come back there at any point for a follow-up visit.
She just has to continue the farce. Yeah, actually, Lulu Wang is doing another film, and it's based on family again, except for it's based on her brother, who she cut out from this film, essentially. So, like, maybe it'll tie into this family, maybe not, I don't know.
Interesting. It'll be like that guy who did 20th Century Women about his mom, and then, what was that movie with Ewan McGregor and Christopher Plummer?
Beginners,
about his dad. Yep.
Ah, interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Man,
I like 20th
think-
Century Women a lot.
I never saw it, but I did see Beginners, and I liked that.
Yeah, well, you should watch 20th Century Women if you want the other part of the story. He had a couple wacky parents.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Chris, maybe the reason that you were like, yes, and really satisfied with her not dying is all the Ozu that you've been watching lately.
Yeah.
Because Ozu will kill him. Kill him off, you know?
For sure. Yeah. Or they move on in life and they never get to see their family again. They get married.
Yeah. This one just has that slight upturn.
Yeah. Just a little bit of happiness.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this episode, unless anybody has anything else.
Not I.
No. I'm so happy that we got to talk about this film.
Yeah, in more detail.
Yeah. I'm glad we finally got to talk about it, but now it's time to say farewell.
We each got one.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, listener, for listening. And then, of course, thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Stay tuned to this channel. Our next episode will likely be either the Casually Criterion over Valley of the Dolls, or an episode on Ready or Not or The Souvenir. It's up in the air. If you have any preference at all, shoot us a contact in somehow.
or somehow
pigeon, messenger pigeon.
Yeah, or fire signals.
Send us an electronic message.
If you want to send us one of those, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can send us an electronic mail at our email address, which is casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Yep.
Yes. If you have any suggestions, send those too. But for now, thanks for listening so much, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Farewell.